Love had interrupted my life just once, and even that small incident had made me lose my presence of mind. Perhaps I wasn't as composed a person as I thought. Before, I was confident that I was capable of all kinds of great things, but that belief was now somewhat shaken. I tilted my face up, catching the sunlight right in my eyes. Of course, I thought of Senpai from the time I got to the station until I got home. Mostly, I asked myself whether I loved her. If I could only clear that up, I wouldn't need to torture myself any longer. I worked through the issues one by one, like I was scoping up rocks from the bottom of a river. Was I opposed because we were both girls? To be honest, once I cooled down and thought about it, that wasn't the issue. The real question, what was truly important, was whether there was something between Senpai and me. But I couldn't quite see what, if anything, was there. Perhaps I simply didn't know what it meant to love someone yet. If I had asked Senpai about it, would I be able to understand the nature and identity of that feeling? While I was questioning myself, the shadows lengthened, the streets were scorching, and the next thing I knew, I was home. When I opened the gate, I saw the shadow of a person to my right. My grandmother was looking out into the garden, holding the piebald cat. The leaves and branches of the trees, before her eyes, were dancing in the wind, already colored by fall. My grandmother noticed me immediately, and her eyes softened slightly. "Welcome home." She pet the cat as if to prompt it to greet me, so it meowed at me as well. "Thank you." My greeting came out more naturally than the day before, at least. I even waved my hand slightly at the cat. When I tried to go straight into the house, my grandmother called to me again. "Did something happen?" "Huh?" She had seen right through me. I stopped. My grandmother had the same tranquil expression as the cat. How had she figured it out? "It's all over your face." As soon as she said that, I rushed to hide it. If I told her about Senpai, it would be a disaster. My grandmother still held the cat as she walked over to me. Her direct approach never changed, no matter how much older she became. "Do you like someone?" My grandmother's insight, which wasn't quite right, but also wasn't too far off, caught me by surprise. I'm at an all-girls school." "Right, right." My grandmother's expression looked more youthful than usual, her shoulders shaking mirthfully, as if she had been caught in the act of something naughty. "Any school fun for you?" Yeah, I suppose." "You're quite an unusual child, aren't you?" It seemed my grandmother hadn't quite expected my reply. It was in my nature to enjoy learning, so I didn't think school was a bad place. "Well, I don't dislike studying." "What a wonderful granddaughter you are." My grandmother's tone was light as she complimented me. Being praised was difficult, so I looked up at the trees in the garden, like my grandmother had just been doing. They looked very similar to the ones in the school courtyard. Light was streaming in from the other side of the leaves, so I narrowed my eyes. The dusk light, not quite harsh enough to make me look away or close my eyes, settled over me. "I don't know what's troubling you, but if you just approach it like you always have, I'm sure you'll be fine. When you become an adult, you won't be able to just start new things all the time anymore. Now is your only chance." My grandmother's advice intermingled with the sunset. It was like the edge of a curtain, flapped by the breeze, gently caressing my face. Adults already know the outcomes of all kind of things, you see? That's why they become cowards. All kinds of things. Like a girl falling in love with another girl. I could respond positively to Senpai. She would be thrilled. The two of us would be filled with something bright, but was it doomed to an outcome that would someday turn me into a coward? That's why all I do is look at the garden, and all your grandfather does is chase after the cat. Doesn't my grandfather just do that because he likes cats? I thought. Is that how it is? It is. My grandmother's voice was steeped with her years, lending it a certain affirmation. It was like spray hitting the surface of my hesitating heart. This conversation took quite a turn from being about school. Oh, that was just a greeting. I sometimes get in the mood for a nice long chat with my grandchild, you see? That's how it is, too. My grandmother spoke plainly. But don't we talk all the time? I thought. Still, the frequency of our conversations, other than quick greetings or scoldings, certainly had decreased. Maybe my grandmother was lonely, though she didn't show it to anyone. And I was even more distant from my grandfather. He wasn't present at the moment. It was like a gap in my heart that inevitably widened as I grew older. Whenever I noticed it, I started wanting to fill it in, like what I was doing right now. I'm glad we talked too, I said. Though she hadn't really been trying to teach me anything. I felt like she had given me a nudge. Just as my grandmother said, I didn't know what would happen. I couldn't blame that on anyone. But having someone else's words was incredibly helpful when my heart felt all alone. My grandmother's face softened slightly, and she gently pat the cat's back. My grandmother, the cat, and I, we were all quietly growing older, bit by bit. Only the scenery of the house, cloaked in the sunset, remained the same as it had in the past. That night, I finally decided on my answer. I wanted to tell Senpai before my resolve faltered, so I simply waited for the night to end.